Hello there. Good evening, everyone. How are you doing today? Welcome to the 34th episode of Employee Engagement Live. I'm Shrikant Acharya. I'm the CEO at Offineeds.com. Offineeds is a leading corporate gifting and merchandise company based in Bengaluru, India. And once again, welcome to the 34th episode of Employee Engagement Live. Today is going to be super exciting because the guest we have today is a very interesting person, and we're going to be speaking. Typically, we have CHROs, VPs of large organizations, and mostly we focused on speaking about best practices around employee engagement and building great teams, mostly in the context of large organizations. But today, I'm super excited because we get the opportunity of understanding how small and medium enterprises and how startups are going to be doing that. So before we get into the show, let me take a quick minute to talk you through what Employee Engagement Live is and why we do it. As I said, I'm Shrikant Acharya, CEO at Offineeds.com. Offineeds is a leading corporate gifting company, and because of the kind of business that we do, we had the opportunity to work very closely with some of the largest organizations. When the pandemic hit a couple of years back, employee engagement became a big issue. It was already a very important pillar of what organizations and what HR leaders do. But with the pandemic, with remote working, with hybrid working, the entire employee engagement strategies were disrupted. So we had the opportunity to work closely with some of the best organizations, and they were willing to come live and share some of their best practices, their experiences, their philosophies, their anecdotes, and some of the strategies that they were doing in their current and past organizations. And that's the whole idea. Today is the 34th episode where we bring business leaders and experts in the space of HR and corporate communication, and ask them about their ideas, philosophies, and thoughts around employee engagement. Today we have a very interesting personality. Today we have Prabhash Nirbhay, who comes with total of about 20 years of professional experience, almost 12, 13 years he spent with large corporates in the HR role. He worked with the ACC, with L&T, with Arvind Brands, VF Corporation, and Sab Miller until 2014. And in 2015, he turned an entrepreneur and started his own consulting firm called Flipcarbon Integrated Solutions. Now, while Flipcarbon started as a HR consulting firm, it's now gone on to become a growth strategy firm and works with several small, medium, and startups, small and medium businesses and startups, and helps them grow their business, align the entire organization and strategy to their vision. So, with that said, let me introduce to you Prabhash. Very good evening, Prabhash. Thank you for taking your time. How are you doing today? Hey, Prabhash, are you there? I can see your screen is frozen. All right, so let's give Prabhash a minute. There might be a problem with the network. So let me take another minute while Prabhash joins us back to what we should expect out of today's episode. Like I said, I'm going to be asking Prabhash questions about, when should a small organization or a startup start thinking about employee engagement? When is it the right time for them to start thinking about employee engagement? How is employee engagement different in a large organization? I want to bring to your notice that Prabhash has worked with um, different large organizations. Three of the companies that he's worked for, which is Arvind Brands, Sab Miller, and L&T, are almost 100-year-old organizations. So what are the processes and what are the strategies that they use in those organizations versus what strategies are showing the greatest results in small and medium businesses and in startups? Those are things which I'm really curious to know, because typically at Offineeds, what I run is, I would call it as a small business. We're about close to 100 employees, and I see, because we work closely with several large organizations, I see the challenges that we have, and the kind of approach to these solutions is very different in the case of small organizations in our organization versus large organizations. So these are questions that I'm really keen about. Let's give another minute for Prabhash to join in. And in the meanwhile, if you have any questions, if you're an entrepreneur or if you're part of a smaller organization, what questions you have, put those things together, and we'll point those questions to Prabhash. Let's give him just a minute more to join. Hey, Prabhash, are you there?
Okay, I'm there. I'm there. So I have kind of sorted myself out and got into a different mode. I'm sorry
All right.
about this. It just seems to be a huge network issue here.
No worries, Prabhash. So welcome to Employee Engagement Live. How are you doing today, Prabhash?
I'm doing well, Shrikant. Thank you for having me in. It's always a pleasure to be talking to people about subjects which are very close to my heart.
Right.
Performance, engagement, capability development, uh, visioning, getting organizations to grow. Those are the areas where I like to work. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. So I want to remind the audience, if you join from LinkedIn, hi Dipankar, I see you're saying hello from LinkedIn. If you're joining on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, you can type in your comments there, and in a few more minutes, I'm going to welcome you to point any questions that you might have for Prabhash. So today we're going to be speaking about the secrets to building a high performance team. But before we get there, I want to ask this one question that I ask everybody who joins my show, Prabhash. What, according to you, is employee engagement?
So, you know, one of the challenges that we face in the HR function is that many of our offerings are not non-standard. If you talk about employee engagement in organization A, they would be doing completely different things as compared to organization B. But fundamentally, if you ask me, if you can get vision to walk the corridors of the organization, and otherwise we have some really fancy gold-plated vision statements on the wall behind us, which nobody really identifies with, right? But if you can get that to walk your corridors, if you can get the vision to have coffee stains on its paper on which it is written, which means people are engaging with the vision, then you have an engaged organization. It's as simple as that.
It's a very different kind of explanation that I get. I haven't heard that before, so that's an indication today's conversation is going to be very different and very interesting. Let's get straight to the topic that we're speaking about, Prabhash. So tell me, what are your three secrets to building a high performance team?
So if you ask me, you need to look at a high performance team from multiple dimensions. Like the first dimension is accountability. That people are take accountability for their roles. They are willing to get their hands dirty and they are willing to work without significant supervision on their own
Mm,
towards a goal. That's the first. That's the A part of it. If you see, then I would say that there's a B part to it. Belief. People should be able to align themselves to the vision of the organization. People should be able to align to what the CEO is saying. People should be able to believe the leadership and trust them that when they say that we are going to navigate you from point A to point B, that
mm,
navigation is realistically possible. You know,
mm,
and if that can happen, then they will run after you and they will make things happen. And we have seen that in multiple occasions in the past across different organizations, across non-organizational social causes. When people believe in a cause beyond the normal strength of what they think they can deliver, magic happens. So that
mm,
belief is very important. And if you ask me for the C element of it, I would say culture, that
mm.
I'm accountable, I have belief, but the kind of culture you want me to operate in is not conducive to accountability and belief.
Right.
So, despite my best interest in delivering the most awesome outcomes, I just can't navigate the culture. So, it's important to have a culture which is positive, warm, high energy, where you hold people accountable, but you also enable them to work and win in teams.
Mm,
So working and winning in teams is very important. No, वो हिंदी में कहावत है अकेला चला बाहर नहीं बोल सकता. So you need to be working together to a common outcome. Uh, Essentially, engagement is all about passing electric current through an electromagnet. You do that, and everything starts pointing in the same direction, and that's how magnetism happens. So that's my ABC.
Awesome. Loved it. Just to reiterate, it's accountability, belief, and culture. Awesome. Really, really well said. And I love the analogy of passing electricity in one direction so that magnetism can really happen. Super, Prabhash. So I want to ask you about culture, right? We almost every guest who's been on the show speaks about the role of culture, the importance of culture, right? But in a small organization, I know you're consulting startups and organizations at a very early stage, even before they have employees, right? So when do you start to think about culture, and does it form with design and with intention, or it just happens with the flow? When should organization, when should a small enterprise start thinking about designing their own culture, and how should they approach it?
So, see, culture is like raising a puppy to an adult dog, if you think about it. You bring the puppy home and say that I'll wait for the right time to train the puppy. The puppy will anyway train himself. You don't train him, he will train himself. So a culture will happen with respect to whether you want to build a culture or not.
Mm,
So it is better that you design it and think about it and build it from scratch in the direction that you want it to evolve. So
right.
there is no right time. Day one, even if you are the only employee of your organization, the CEO of the organization, so you are from janitor to CEO of your organization, you still need to think about culture. You still need to be training yourself. For example, as CEO, let's say you start a company and you are the only person, you should still wake up in the morning, come early to office, unlock the door, and clean up the office. If you don't do that, then your office will become a culture of it's okay to be working in a space which is not optimum. You know?
Mm,
Even a single member organization can have a culture.
right.
Like my culture when I started Flipcarbon was come to office first thing in the morning, uh, open the door of the organization, and broom the entire place clean. That was my day one in office. Before I could afford housekeeping, before I could afford a structure for my organization, I was doing the cleaning myself. That was the culture. Right?
Right, right. Absolutely, I agree with you on that. So if there's an entrepreneur or a soon to be entrepreneur, what would your advice be to them? Would you be in a position to recommend a framework on how they should, when they realize the importance of culture? Can you give them a framework or a kind of laid out path that they can follow to build culture within their organization in a more conscious way?
Yes. So if you look at it, if you, I'll go back to the same question of a vision, right? So
Mm,
a lot of people write a vision and then they write a mission and then they write a set of values, correct?
mm,
And hopefully it also means something to them. Not typically to the person doing the writing, it means a lot, but to everybody else, you need to help help them understand what it exactly means, right? Now, for example, your vision tells you, where do you want to go, right?
mm,
Your mission tells you why do you want to go there, right?
mm,
And your values and your goals tell you how you will reach there, right?
mm,
And values are a very important element of culture. So on one side you have the values, on the other side you have the OKRs or the goals. So the
mm,
OKRs are a marker of your performance,
mm.
and values are a marker of your culture. So you have a set of values and you define those values well to people, it will form a culture. Let me give you an example. The values of Flipcarbon, we call it our DNA, is C6, right? It starts from capability, then it goes to conviction, then it goes to care, then it goes to uh, conscience, then it goes to candor, then it goes to confluence, right? Now, each one of them is actually a cultural definition. When you say capabilities, we say that, look, if you don't know a job, don't worry. As long as you are committed to learning about it, it's fine. And
Mm,
that is why today we are able to work with organizations across the various spectrum, right? We are working with manufacturing, we are working with hospitality, we are working with drone tech, we are working with marketing tech, we are working with e-commerce, we are working with retail. Now, many of these industries we don't know, but we have the conviction, which is our C2, and the
mm,
capability, which is our C1, to learn
mm.
and grow with it. Similarly, at some point in time, the third C, care, would come into the picture. That be mindful of what you are asking the client to do, so that you don't make them to go run in the wrong direction. Or confluence, which says that I and my client are the same. We are one. So while we are on opposite side of the table as client and service provider,
Mm.
that is between us. The external world, when they sees us, they should be able to see one organization delivering great magic. That's how it should be.
Right.
So our DNA is a marker of our culture, and we communicate it very often to our team members. So my recommendation: have a great set of values
Mm.
and communicate it frequently with your team members, and you will make a culture which you want to make.
Right. Awesome. Really well said. I think that's a uh, reasonably good and understandable approach to be able to move ahead. So anybody who's there in the audience, now's a great time. If you have any questions, please put that on the comments, and I will try to point it out to Prabhash. So Prabhash, I was really curious. You worked with about five organizations, I think, and three of which are almost 100 years old: Arvind and L&T and Sab Miller. And then you start a company on your own, and you start consulting with companies which are very very early in the embryonic stage, right? So what's the experience been? How is it different? What are the pros, cons? And tell us a little bit about how you see them different, or what similarities you see.
They are either they have crossed 100 or they are very close to 100. You know?
Okay.
And when I look at even Flipcarbon, my current organization, I look at it as a 100-year organization. I always tell people that, look, if you believe in the 100-year organization, things will fall in place. Even if you are a young organization today, you don't have the resources to do everything right. If you believe in a 100-year journey, you will get things right. I'll give an example. The pandemic struck, and we are a very small boutique consulting firm, right? And consulting is the first thing which will get impacted if people are tight on resources, right? It's always better to pay your own employees than to terminate an employee and continue to pay a consultant, right?
Mm.
So obviously, the first ones to be hit were us, correct? And so April 2020 was a dark period in our organization from that perspective.
Mm.
But we never deviated from our original goals. We never deviated from our original path. We honored all our offers. Nobody in our organization lost the job because we couldn't afford the salaries or anything like of that sort. Because we were very clear. We started in 2015, and in 2115 we'll complete 100 years. That's how we look at ourselves, and we will walk in that direction. Short, and in that case, a pandemic is a blip, right? 100-year organizations have seen many pandemics. My last company, Sam Miller, it has seen apartheid in South Africa, right? It has seen
Mm.
a pandemic, it has seen two world wars, and it has survived all of that to become a $109 billion company. So there's no doubt in my mind that even Flipcarbon can become that. You just need to remember that you are there for 100 years. So my advice to young entrepreneurs is don't be fly by night. You know,
Mm.
Look at it always from a long term perspective. Yes, today is going to be difficult. Yes, tomorrow is going to be difficult. Yes, you are going to have cash flow challenges, burn rates, all of that, keeping you awake at night. But the fundamental principles of running a business are the same. You plan for the long term, and then you break it down into small pieces that you can bite. You, know, you are not a short term organization. So it doesn't matter that you started operations yesterday. You
Right.
should still be thinking of yourself that you will be here much beyond your own age. That's how you
Right.
need to look at your organization.
Right. Right. Absolutely perfect. Really well said. And I want to ask you a little more specifically with respect to say employee experience, or with respect to employee engagement or talent building. Is it very different in established large organizations versus small organizations?
Yes. So, for example, you large organizations have the luxury of time.
Yeah.
Small organizations don't have the luxury of time. So, in a large organization, if I want to build a principle around, uh, let's say, retention, I can take my sweet time. Because even if I have a 20% attrition, I still will have enough number of people to get the business continuity sorted, right?
Mm.
If I'm a large organization, for example, if I was a similar India, 3,500 people. No, even if you lose 700 people, you might still be able to run the business because you lose the 700 people over a period of time. It won't happen one day,
Correct.
and you can continue. Your business continuity is not at risk. If you are let's say, a startup with 15 people, you lose one of them, he might be so business critical that your business may not be able to survive, right? So agility is not much more of significance in startups than in
Mm.
mature organizations.
Right.
You want to build a policy, you can take 6 months. Can do market research, all of that in a mature organization. You want to
Mm.
change a policy, you can take 2 years. But In a startup, you can't afford that. You need to be able to be agile to say that, look, I'll write it and then I'll improve it.
Right.
So let me release it first and then improve it.
Mm.
So perfection is not top of mind. Agility is in a young organization. Whereas a large organization will most likely get everything sorted and then release a version one.
Right.
A small organization will release version one in the morning and then version two in the evening.
Right.
You know, uh, and then you will continue to do that enough number of times till you mature. So more agile, faster. So I tell people that look, when you are a young organization or a startup, agility does not mean lack of processes. No, agility means ability to change processes frequently.
Mm.
It means releasing them fast, do a beta, then go to version one, then go to version two. You know? But if you sit on it, it's a problem.
Right.
So that's the core, I think. The time is crunched in a startup environment. You need to do it faster.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I agree with you on that one. So I want to ask you another question. In the current context, we are probably seeing some of the highest levels of attrition right now. The we see war for talent everywhere. We've heard about the great resignation. And this is making attracting and retaining talent extremely challenging for pretty much all organizations across all sectors, right? So in do you see this as what the smaller organization are at a disadvantage versus large organizations, or the other way around? Because both have their pros and cons, right? So what's your view on that?
Uh, would you want to rephrase that a bit for me? I'm still not
Yeah.
getting the question. So,
Okay. So talent acquisition and talent retention is probably very, very tough right now, tougher than it was ever before. Attrition is at an all-time high if you go by the numbers that are being projected out in the industry, right? So this is happening across all sectors: small businesses, medium businesses, really large businesses as well, right? So from do you see that okay, large businesses have an advantage because of some power that they have, they're able to attract talent or retain talent better? Or do you believe that now in a phase we are looking at more people wanting to work with startups and smaller organizations? Or is this too generic a statement to be said?
no, not really. You're right. You are to a certain extent. There are going to be differences, right? For example, when you are in a large organization, the logo itself becomes your brand, right? So unless you have too many negative things being said about you, by default you are positive when you are a large organization, because even if you write a bad job description, people will still apply.
Mm.
Your job description may not be very attractive. It might be just be 3 pages of text, and yet because you have a very large brand recall, people will ignore all of that and just focus on the fact that I'm getting a job in this organization, I better apply. Whereas when you are a young organization, and unless you have got funded and hence you have a name, you've got coverage in one of those large famous media houses, it's likely that people won't know you, and hence they will focus on the role to decide whether they want to join or not, right? And that is where your job description stops being a job description and it becomes what I call an org description. You should tell people why they should be joining this organization and what is in it for them. A typical job description does not cover that. It always says what is it that I want from this role. So young organizations, I suggest that don't let your HR guys own the job description. It should also be your marketing guys. Yeah? You should be writing job descriptions from the perspective of treating the employee as a customer. You know? Is the customer going to be excited about joining my organization? And how can I create that excitement? So it's a brochure, it's a sales brochure. So you need to be writing brochures in place of job descriptions. And you should be talking about your culture. You should be talking about both your existing culture and the kind of culture you want to build. You should be highlighting and showcasing the things that you can do, because there are many things you can't do. You can't really be top employer in terms of salaries. You can't really be giving people very large teams to work with. So a lot of these typical expectations people have as they grow in their career, that I'll manage a team, I'll become a leader, I'll be no my I would be top 25% of the market in terms of salary. Many of those expectations you will not be able to fulfill.
Right.
Then you should fulfill the expectations which are higher on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you can't fulfill the expectations which are lower, you should go higher. You should talk about the self-actualization they can get in your organization. I'll give an example. The client organization where I'm in now, they operate very closely with the Art of Living organization. Okay,
Mm,
they are doing amazing amount of work in terms of girl child education. No, they're making sure that girl child stay in school longer than what's the India average. They do an
mm,
amazing, phenomenal amount of work. And we
mm,
were doing a salary negotiation with a senior candidate, and we were able to tone down the expectations on compensation just by talking about these elements and how the kind of fulfillment it can give you. You know,
yeah.
so you talk about the higher order needs if you can't fulfill the lower order needs. You know, so that's how that's one of the elements of engaging people in a startup.
Right. Right. Fantastic. I think that is great advice. I would like to, in a few more minutes, if time permits, I'd like to revisit those points and try to get a little bit deeper. But before that, I want to speak a little bit about a recent post that you put out on LinkedIn, where you said, "Has anyone taken the trouble to hire the services of a mystery candidate?" That to me is pretty interesting because I'm very aware and believe that employee experience from the time they apply to the post to the time they come to the office, all of that stuff is important. Employee engagement starts even before they become a part of your team, right? And that experience is very crucial. So can you talk a little bit about that and elaborate a little bit more on that idea that you shared on the post?
Okay, so if you look at talent acquisition in today, there are a lot of broken pieces there. You know, across the board. For example, you will apply for an interview and you may not get the kind of feedback you deserve. Okay,
Mm,
uh, and it's a little unfair because you have spent your time interviewing for that organization. Your time is also valuable. You should have got decent feedback irrespective of what happened as a final outcome, but you don't get that. Your first contact may not be suitable because in many instances talent acquisition has become a element of cost, you know, that which is the search partner which can give me this service at the lowest cost. You know, that's the when you do that, chances are the person on the other side of the telephone is not really engaged with your vision, is not really engaged with your values, does not know your business well enough, and is now talking to a candidate and eroding employer brand. Right? So that's the other element. The third element is that it's a candidates market today. People don't realize that very often. You know? So a good user experience to the candidate is significantly of importance if you want to attract the right kind of talent.
mm,
Now, many times you don't realize it because no candidate is going to come back and give you feedback. Now, most candidate will uh, go out with a bad candidate experience, but not really talk about it to you. And hence, it's important for you to really audit your process and say, is my process working? Is it robust? And is it creating the right employer brand out there in the market? Irrespective of whether the candidate joins or not, or gets an offer or not, they should be going and talking to their friends and say, why don't you apply to this job? Because this organization seems to be very well sorted. No?
correct.
They should be your brand ambassador, irrespective whether they got a job from you or not.
Mm,
So mystery shopper experience, I it's a nice idea. I don't know how you implement that in the talent acquisition perspective, but you do need that feedback. Do need a candidate to look you in the eye and tell you that, look, I spent hours together interviewing for you. You haven't spent even minutes giving me feedback. You know, and is that fair?
mm,
So, or for that matter, that look, uh, you why are you so fixated on my pay slips? You know, how does it matter? You have a size of your job. Make me an offer based on that. No, why is my pay slip relevant to that conversation?
mm,
Uh, doesn't matter if the previous employer was paying me well enough. I wouldn't be negotiating with you, right? So you decide the size of your job and you decide the compensation that you are willing to pay for that job and just pay me that compensation. Why is my previous pay slip even relevant to you? Right?
mm,
A candidate may have this question in their mind. They don't
mm,
ask, right?
right.
Because they are still looking for a job at that moment and they don't want to ask any question which will jeopardize their chances. Right. And
Right.
hence you should encourage that feedback coming in because all of that feedback is relevant. You know?
Right. Awesome. Super. I really hope somebody does that, and I think maybe as a consulting firm, you can offer those services to your clients. I would guess that's a valuable service that could be
Yeah.
there. Just
So you will have, yeah, absolutely. You will have to figure that one out. But one of the reasons it crossed my mind is because it becomes a service offering immediately, right?
yeah,
So definitely, I mean, there's something to think about.
yeah. So let's talk quickly a little bit about your transition from being in HR to becoming an HR consultant. So there's a question here from Gautam who's asking on YouTube, what do you enjoy the most about entrepreneurship, and what do you find the hardest about it? I think that's a pretty interesting question. Can you take that, Prabhash?
So I have a favorite phrase of mine. Okay, I tell people that entrepreneurship is like reproduction in reverse. Your labor pains happen first, and any pleasure you derive out of it is perhaps at the end of it. So, so what I mean by that is actually that look, every day is going to be a challenge in entrepreneurship, and that's where your fun and your joy should come from. If you're going to be looking at fun and joy from the perspective of only the stable environment, entrepreneurship is not for you. But if you
Mm,
enjoy that pain, if you enjoy that pain of even managing cash flows, looking at your profitability, figuring out the right revenue to chase down in a particular year,
mm,
figuring out product strategy, services strategy, creating modules out of services, uh, then you will have fun. Uh,
mm,
Otherwise, a steady job pays more. You know, let's be clear about that. That is, a steady job tends to pay you more. So entrepreneurship is all about the people who enjoy the process of it.
right.
The pain of it. I tell people that enjoy the pain. That is the core of entrepreneurship. That look, some things will be broken. You go and fix them. They start working well. Something else gets broken. You go and fix that. And at some point in time, you will have magic happen, and your organization will grow, transition from a startup to a mature organization, where you will have every piece carved out into a nice, neat structure because there is somebody solving a particular problem. Not every problem needs to come to the entrepreneur himself. That will take time. Now it's been 7.5 years for me, and still there are broken pieces with that we fix every day, and we enjoy that. And of course, there are other advantages of it. Uh, this conversation is a great advantage, because
Mm,
you can have a freewheeling conversation without having to worry about uh, have I taken permission from my corporate communication team for this or not. You know?
yeah.
So I'm my own corporate communication team. I decide. So those are the advantages. You can a lot of decisions become very agile. You don't have to really worry about too many things before you decide.
Right.
Uh, so that's the good part.
Yeah, absolutely. My dad has a very popular, very quote that I really love a lot. He says, "Happiness is found along the way, not at the end of the road." So if if you kind of align that to entrepreneurship, and if you learn to have fun along the way, I think only then entrepreneurship can be for you. If you find day-to-day tasks very challenging, very arduous, very stressful, then I think entrepreneurship is not for you. So with that said, I want to ask a little bit about the leadership mindset that is required to build high performance teams. What would you say? What are the if you had to say, you know, I'm sure leadership and leaders come in all sizes and shapes, but if you had to give them, say, these are three top things that you should keep in mind to be able to build high quality teams, what would you tell them?
So if you think about it, there's just one single word will defines whether you'll be able to build a team or not, right? And that word is called delegation. Correct. Uh, you can only build a team if you are willing to let go of things, right?
Mm,
And trust people with not breaking it apart too much. For example, I like to tell people that look, if you go home and you buy an expensive toy for your child, you still trust the child with that toy, and you are actually kind of okay if they break it. You know, uh, and that's the leadership mindset that you should be okay if your team breaks it because that is where you'll grow a team. If you think that you will need to have a perfect team where nothing gets damaged and then only you will delegate, that day will never come.
yeah.
And one of the biggest in entrepreneurial challenges, your own glass ceiling is defined by you because you can't grow unless you're willing to let your team push you from up behind, right?
Mm,
And that can't happen if you are going to be doing one level below. So as leaders of your organization, you need to learn to deliver one level above, and that is when you will have a vacuum which your team members will fill up. But
mm,
if you don't give them any vacuum, if you are going to be completely occupying that space, then they will never learn, they will never make mistakes, they will wait for supervision, and a high performance team will never be formed. So, but that's the delegation part of it. That's the core of it. That's the cultural aspect of it.
mm,
Believing in people, trusting them to do not too much damage. In fact, trusting them to do awesome work.
mm,
That's the behavioral dimension. But there's also a functional dimension. writing good set of goals for your team, having good management routines, weekly check-ins, monthly one-on-ones, uh, your team meetings, your reviews. And I have a very interesting take on reviews. I believe that in a review process is like driving a car.
Mm,
Uh, you have rear view mirrors and you have a windscreen out up front. If you
mm.
keep looking at the rear view mirror while you are driving, you will meet with an accident, right? But
Right.
invariably, that's what we do in our reviews, right? So it's very important to approach a windscreen approach to a review, which means that things might have not happened last week, but your conversation will not help if that's all you harp on. You need to figure out how to make things happen this week.
Mm,
And that's what the conversation should be about. A leader is there to solve problems, not point them out. You know.
right.
So you need to be the person who solves for the team. Otherwise, what else are you going to be doing there in that room? If they are going to be doing a delivery and you are going to be only reviewing a delivery, then a successful delivery doesn't require you because they did it. And a failed delivery doesn't require you because you couldn't prevent the failure from happening. So you need to be mindful that the delivery of next week is what you are controlling,
Mm,
not controlling versus complaining. If your review is about last week, then you are essentially complaining.
yeah.
If your review is about the next week, then you are essentially controlling in a good way,
Mm,
which means letting them do their job, but setting the boundary condition right so that failure has minimal chances of occurrence.
yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
so these are some of my thoughts on that.
Yeah. Controlling versus complaining, I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind, because it's very easy to go into squabbling mode saying, hey, you said you'll do this. And I agree with you on this, and my philosophy is very similar. I say, create an environment where people can succeed, not create an environment where you're pointing at their failures, right? So those weekly reviews and monthly one-on-ones, I think, are golden when it comes to building sustainable high performance teams. So you've been in the space of HR and team building and growing organizations for almost 20 years, and you clearly have it to for your organization to run for another 93 more years at least. So what do you see changing in the leadership mindset? What was it 20 years back? What is it now? And what do you think? From you can speak about it from a leadership mindset as well as a people manager mindset point of view. What do you see changing? What was it like 20 years back? What is it now? And what do you see it have evolving into over the
So,
next 20 years?
we tend to look at these things from a linear scale, that time changes things. But actually, sometimes it's not the time; it's that the different organizations are on different time zones.
Mm,
So even in the year when I joined as a management trainee, a lot of the principles that we adopt today were extremely valid in ACC. Giving people the freedom to perform, training them well, but trusting them with a great set of outcomes. That was very, very real even when I was a management trainee. That's real even today. So I believe that in this world there are organizations at different life stages, not just from a physical number of years perspective, but the mental life stage, of the organization. So the what's important is to have a mental life stage which is trusting, young, uh, future looking, not dogmatic.
mm,
So irrespective of how many years you have spent, for example, some of the struggles of these 100-year organizations is also that, right? While they are great, they also have the struggles because they are finding it very difficult to unshackle themselves from the legacy of 100 years, you know, and hence change takes that much more pain to stabilize in these organizations. So,
mm,
so that's the flip side of being 100-year old. So it's important to look at it from a mental age perspective. So even if you think that I'm too young, I'm just completing 2 years, mentally you can be more mature, and think of yourself as a 2-decade-old organization.
mm,
Similarly, you may be 100-year-old, but mentally you can be very, very agile. Say, look, I am a startup. Uh, some of the times I wonder why organizations which are employing 100,000 people and earning $10 billion in revenue can't come out with magical products or services. And one of the reasons is dogma, right? Because they get so straight-jacketed into their own ways of working that agility, startup mindset just does not occur there. No, they have all the resources in the world at their disposal, but the startup mindset, the willingness to fail and pick up pieces, they want everything to succeed, and that's one of the reasons why they fail. So their job is to become agile. Sometimes a startup doesn't succeed because it does not adopt the processes that a more mature organization would have been willing to adopt, and that could be a challenge. For example, you might say, look, we changed so much that we can't have OKRs, right? But that's not true at all. No, you still need an OKR for today. It might change tomorrow. So so having the mental age, not the timeline, is what is important.
Yeah,
The appropriate mental age.
right. Absolutely. I think that's very well articulated. Thank you so much for that. I think we have time for one or two more questions. So I want to ask you two questions that come to my mind. The first one is you spoke about being an organization. You spoke about employer brand building, being an organization that is attracting the right kind of talent. You want the right people to be joining the organization. So what, from the context of a small business, what are some of the advice that you would give to small business to attract the right kind of talent to apply and join your organization?
So I think one of the thing that has happened for the good over the last 1.5 decade is that the world has become more democratic.
Hmm.
Not everything requires more resources to be good at. For example, having a good digital footprint is an absolute imperative for you to attract the right kind of talent. People want to know who they are working for, and if that is difficult to find, they will have second thoughts about it, right? So your leaders should be on LinkedIn. They should have a good LinkedIn personality. Your organization should be visible in terms of what they're up to. Uh, like I tell people that if you're getting published, make your all that you has been published about you in the past part of your job posting. In a subtle manner, so that people know what you got published about for. So my advice is that hustle for talent, find talent in a manner where should be an opportunity. For example, for me, every CV out there on LinkedIn which has an open to work tag is an opportunity. I definitely go and check that profile out, because it's not that there are people dying to join me. There are always people who need convincing to join a 7-year-old organization, which is still a boutique consulting firm. So
Right.
every person who is looking for a job tomorrow is a great opportunity. I don't want to wait 90 days. I want to hire them tomorrow. No? Uh, so I hustle for talent all the time. I tell startup founders, especially CEOs, I think your core job is talent acquisition. You spend a lot of time there.
Right.
Figure out ways to hire people on the go. Figure out ways to say that, look, should I be looking at 100% candidate now and wait for that candidate for 9 months, or should I be looking at a candidate who may be only 60% ready, but I will get 60% productivity for the next 3 months at least, rather than waiting for 3 months for somebody to join. So
Right.
3 months worth of 60% is still 180%, right? So rather
Right.
than having 0 into 3, I will have 180. So going with whatever is available, training people well, having robust capability processes, so that even if you get work done through interns, it's good quality work. Even if you get work done through freshers, it's good quality work. Even if you get work done through somebody who is not fully ready, uh, the process takes care of that part, and you still get good quality outcomes out. Those are some of the considerations on talent acquisition. But I think talent acquisition is also about external talent retention. What I mean by external talent retention is having people who keep coming back to your company page to check you out, even if they are not looking to joining you. You should have a attractive persona for people, so that they check you out. And it's like not being hungry to order that samosa today at Starbucks, but enjoying going there every day for my cup of coffee. That kind of you should have footfalls, even if you're not having uh, somebody buying from you.
Mm.
So that's how you should be building a persona.
Yeah, awesome. I think that can be an entire conversation in itself, but I think that those are some great tidbits that you've shared, Prabhash. Thank you. So well, let's take one last question, Prabhash. I want to ask you about your view of this work from home slash remote working setup. Do you think it's here to stay? Do you want people coming back to office? What do you think is going to happen? What is the future of office going to look like?
So, to be fair and realistic, there are some irreversible changes, okay, and we need to get used to that. That there are people who have realized that they are able to get the same productivity out as they were having before from a location which is one fifth of the total cost, right?
Mm,
Or is giving them a better standard of living or a better lifestyle choice, and those people are unlikely to come back to work, right?
mm,
So, if you are one of those industries, you should get used to it, and don't be dogmatic about it and say that look, but work happens only in office.
mm,
But you also can be an industry where work happens only in office. You know?
mm,
Like for example, I'm not going to have my chapatis if the worker in the factory is going to sit at home, right?
mm.
He needs to go there and grind it out and pack it for me,
Yeah.
Tata. Right? So there are industries which is where it is an imperative for people to hang out with each other, either because the process is like that,
Mm,
or because the design of the delivery is collaborative. Right?
mm.
In such cases, I think it's important to be mindful that you may have to go back to some amount of the previous status quo of coming to
Right.
work every day, uh, and then having that making that happen. Then there is a third category where the employee is someone who wants to do one or the other, irrespective of whether the fit is with the organization or not.
Mm,
In such cases, you will for the if the employee wants to come to office and you want to be a remote workplace, then you need to provide them those opportunities to come to office, right? But
mm.
if you want to be the one which will largely work out of an office and the employee wants to be a remote worker, then maybe there is a culture misfit and you will have attrition and you should be ready for that.
Mm.
But fundamentally, it has to be horses for courses. It cannot be one size fits all. I
Right.
think media plays a non-expert role in this.
Correct.
Without understanding the overall context, a lot gets published, and it has a self-fulfilling prophecy around it. Right?
Mm.
If employees hear enough number of times that work from home is the only reality, then they'll start trusting that reality. That
Right.
will become the new reality. If they keep listening that no, but most people will go back to work, then that will become the new reality.
That's true.
So I think media has to play a responsible role. It's horses for courses, and not a one size fits all.
Right. Right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Prabhash. It was wonderful speaking to you. Very, very insightful. There are some points which I really liked. I mean, some of the greatest things that stay with me is complaining versus, collaborating, which you said, right, about reviews, and some of the other points that you said were wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you everybody in the audience. The weekend is around the corner. So thank you for taking your time and joining us. We hope you found value. Thank you so much, Prabhash. I hope you had a good time.
Thank you, Shrikant. The pleasure was mine.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend. Thank you. Bye bye, Prabhash.
Bye.